education background, he has a Bachelor of Arts, Political Science from the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. So please help me welcome to the podium, Todd Plesko.
I'm going to stand out here a little bit so I can see what slides on there. But I'm going to cover today basically 4 points on there that different services that DART provides, and I'll highlight a couple of the capital projects that we're working on. And I will also, what's not on there, I'll cover a little bit about transit-oriented development, possibly at Buckner Station and Longview, Lake June, so the potentials for that in that area. The key items, the first one has to do with a major project that we'll be working on next year, which is to redesign and revamp the entire bus network and also our mobility on demand services. And I'll talk about that GoLink service, which is our new mobility on demand, which now includes Uber Pool as part of it. And then we have a program called a Rider Assistance Program, which is a user-side subsidy. So seniors in the zip code right here in Pleasant Grove are able to get access. They can purchase transit value where they can use a taxi to get wherever they want to go within a certain budget amount each month. So, the key thing I want to really sort of ask your assistance and interest in is this redesigned bus system. The city of Dallas, of course, is very interested in seeing an improved bus system that's faster, quicker, and that allows people to get to jobs, more jobs within a short period of time than is currently possible. And so we are hiring a consultant. We're actually going to hire the same consultant that was used to develop the Houston system, which is perhaps the foremost example of really how to redesign a transit system to result in increased ridership. They're perhaps the only transit system in America that's been experiencing increased bus ridership during the period of time which nationwide bus ridership is down. So we hope to award that contract in October, and then beginning in January of 2020, I'll be looking for stakeholders. Certainly the Southeast Chamber would be an excellent group to be participating in helping us to look at the trade-offs and the designs to develop this new system. And then finally, if all goes according to plan, we would be envisioning improved services in August of 2021. So why do we want to revamp the bus system? Well, if you look at the whole Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's been rapid increase in jobs, rapid increase in people, and yet our bus ridership has been down. So we really need to figure out why and to change that. And part of the reason is for increasing competition with Uber and Lyft and scooters. If you're downtown Dallas, you'll see scooters everywhere. But we're also competing against the automobile, and so a lot of people who are now working have been able to either lease or buy a car, and so they are able to get further distances within the travel time, and they maybe have elected not to use the rail or the bus system. So we also are at a point where our rail system is, for the most part, built out. There'll be a few infill stations that we finish. There will be perhaps the second alignment downtown, and we're working on the Silver Line, which is our Cotton Belt line, that's sort of east-west rail line. But those are, for the most part, that system is built. And so our financial resources are highly constrained. We're paying back a large part of our transit system, our rail system, based on debt. Debt gets paid first. You operate your services with what's left over. And so whatever we do will be a challenge. And so we need to get the community's input on how we might change the system and do so within the budgets that we have available. So the main part of this consultant study will just start with building user groups, rider groups, elected officials in all of DART's 13 cities, but also community groups, stakeholders, business groups, to provide input to this process. We will develop scenarios, and our board is interested in saying, well, what if we change the ratio of ridership-oriented routes versus coverage routes? And I'll cover that as we go through. But to do that, it has an impact on neighborhoods. It affects bus service that people might count upon. So the board will give us a couple of percentages. Right now we're about 55% ridership oriented in terms of how we deploy our resources, and 45% for coverage. And so they're maybe less focused on ridership than to make sure that everybody has access to a bus within close distance. So that system, if we change it, we have to develop one alternative, which is based on existing resources, and then a second one based on if we get new resources. So that's what this consultant project will work on. So I'll show you today just an example. Now, this does not show all of DART's bus routes. We have 140 bus routes. We operate 684 buses in our peak. We got 163 rail cars, plus the TRE and in the future here, the Cotton Belt. So, but this shows you the high frequency services. Well, you'll see that's primarily our rail system. And you can see just a couple of routes. One, 592, which is a Pleasant Grove route. It's one of the high-frequency routes that DART operates today, or did in 2018. And then Route 11, which operates into West Dallas, Copper Hill, and then goes into the South Dallas area around M.L. King Station. So those are the only what we call high-frequency routes, where they run more frequently than maybe every 30 minutes. They run every 15-minute type routes. So if you look at, we implemented last Monday on the 12th, an increased number. We had 4 more what we call high frequency routes. You'll notice also the 467, which serves Pleasant Grove, 466, which comes into Buckner Station and edge of the Pleasant Grove area. So this area of this particular southeast area of Dallas is one of the most important areas as far as DART in terms of our resources, in terms of ridership, and it's also, we think, a lot of our future as well. So we just want to see that we're improving them, but where we'd like to be would be something more like this, which shows more high-frequency routes all over the system. But that consultant study will be working with the community to see, is this what we need to be doing, or should it be something different? So I'll give you a quick example. We showed this at our board retreat this last February, where we showed the board that, let's say we've only got 18 buses, and you see all those little dots on that map. Those reflect passenger boardings. So you can see there's 2 routes, essentially a north-south and an east-west route that have a lot of ridership. That's your ridership corridor. And you see the boardings in all the other little neighborhoods off of that. But you've only got 18 buses to spend. So we asked the board, how do we deploy this? So you could do it based on ridership. And you can see that we put all 18 buses on those 2 routes that would create a lot of frequency. You walk up and within 5 minutes there's a bus, and so it makes it very convenient for people. But if you live on some of those streets and neighborhoods where you see the dots, which are farther than walk distance from those routes, then that group would be left out if we allocated resources that way. So you could take the coverage approach, which by and large has been what DART has done over the last 30 years, which is to make sure that everybody has something. But the high frequency, which a lot of our city council has pointed out, hey, we need to be the right kind of city to attract the right kind of development, to help our housing, to help our job access, then maybe you need to have more high frequency routes. Well, this takes all 18 buses and spreads them out, so you've got about 5 or 6 that are on the high frequency route compared to 18, and the rest of them are scattered out. So that's another way, that's what DART has by and large done, but it may not be what the community wants in the future. So the goals are different and they have different impacts. Ridership is the lower subsidies, more ridership, but not as much coverage. If you look at coverage, everybody gets something. It serves the low density areas, but it doesn't generate the ridership that you might want. So our board said, well, where is DART today? What's our percentage of our resources that go to the high ridership corridors? And that's basically 55% of our resources are put on corridors, which we define as high ridership corridors. Enough density, enough activity to support that. And 45% roughly go to the coverage. You'll notice that shows the little 1%, that's duplication. DART, when we built the rail system, when I came here, we essentially eliminated most all of the duplicative services. There's a little bit, but not much left. So You might say, well, how do we compare to other cities? And I'll just point out Houston as an example. They were 55% ridership, and they were 30% coverage and 15% duplication. But when they finished this exact study with the same consultant that we are hoping to engage, they came up with 80% of the resources on the high frequency ridership corridors and 20% for coverage. And I won't go into the others, but DART has not made that determination yet as to where we want to be, because we need community engagement first. Next part is I want to talk about a service called GoLink. And you may have heard of microtransit, you certainly know Uber and Lyft, but Uber and Lyft are basically a taxi service that are just not shared ride. And so DART sort of developed services for low density areas that didn't attract a lot of riders, with sort of an on-demand service that maybe you could serve well, but maybe not have to spend as many dollars doing it. So we started with our GoPass, that we started using this mobile app, and we realized that everybody's using mobile apps for everything. And so we thought if you could pay for your app, if you could schedule an on-demand service through that GoPass app, that it would be easier for people to use in some areas to get to a rail station or to a bus hub. So this shows you today, the shaded areas are the zones that today have on-demand microtransit service. 7 of those have Uber Pool, and I'll cover that in a second. But all of them will have Uber Pool by sometime in September of this year. So you can see where those are. In a lot of cases, there are areas that don't have any bus service, like far north Plano. You know, they had no bus service whatsoever. Rowlett had 1 bus route, but they 40,000 people, but there's just 1 bus route. They have a rail station and 1 bus route. So we put in this microtransit service. We added 3 in Riley, and in Cleburne, and also in the Inland Port. That's in southern Dallas. So you can see what happened, like in April of 18. That's when we started this service, and as we expanded it and we added Uber Pool, you can see we went from just under 7,000 boardings a month to over 19,000 boardings a month. We believe that when we get Uber Pool into all of them, we'll probably be in 25,000 boardings a month. Now these are in low density areas, zones that are about 6 square miles. They surround a rail station or a bus transfer facility. We have 1 up in Legacy that's bus only. We surveyed people to say, do you like this service? And you can see 88% of the people who use the service from a fairly extensive survey indicated that they would recommend it to family and friends. That is perhaps the most common tool for marketing companies. Would you recommend this service to your family and friends? If you compare it to your cable company, this is very high rated. So, so you can see also for the people who are disabled, 95% say they would recommend it to family and friends. So I just would point out these are the 3 zones we have in this general area and we started it out sort of just over a year ago. This kind of shows you what are people doing. The lines say where are they getting on or off, and you can see they're going from Buckner Station down to neighborhoods within Riley and in Cleburne. And that used to have 1 bus route that ran once an hour, peak hours only. This service is now available Monday through Friday from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so we're actually beginning to attract a lot more people in this than we did when we had this fixed route bus.
Can I ask a question? At that point, when they get to Buckner Station, are they taking the train in, or are they taking the bus in?
The majority take the train, although coming into Buckner, there are people that jump on buses as well. So I don't have the exact percentage, but 95% of all the trips in these stations are going on to buses or trains, but I would probably say 80% of that is to the train.
I hope that'll be part of the study, because some people maybe will just want to take an express bus all the way into the urban core as opposed to going through the stoppage of the train route. Of course, there could be express trains too.
True. In fact, we used to run an express route, as you probably know, that went downtown, carried about 3,000 boardings a day from the Buckner Station area. It may have actually been from late June at that point, but anyhow, This shows Inland Port. In Inland Port, we get to UNT, the campus there, and there's a station, UNT station. And the area in Dallas, this shows you the zone, this city of Dallas. And that's where Amazon is, and there's increasing numbers of jobs in that area. There was one fixed route bus that went down to Cedar Valley College, but other than that, you couldn't get to any of those jobs. So we brought this on-demand service on to allow people to get to where they're going, where they need to go. And this shows you a potential expansion of that, which goes into the non-DART service areas. There is a Transportation Management Association that has been formed, and that group will get some special funding, and they may one of their options would be to consider expanding this service to serve parts of DeSoto, parts of Wilmer and Hutchins, Lancaster, where other jobs are. And it's particularly important because a lot of the people who live in southern parts of Dallas are very, very close to this, but if there is no transit, they're not generally considered for one of these jobs. So it's important for us to look at this.
Could you explain a little bit more so how this Go Link works? For instance, is there people go online, if 17,000 people want to go, then they're going to provide adequate services for that, and then a given day, like Saturday, might be 3,000, so it might recede down to cover only that 3,000 number. Is that how that works?
Great, that's a really good question. So the way DART has a baseline amount of service, which today is essentially one vehicle. But we supplement it with Uber Pool. So Uber Pool has 20,000 Uber drivers that operate within the metropolitan area, including in this area. And so what we want to do is to make sure that we have adequate capacity for somebody that needs a wheelchair vehicle, because the Uber vehicles are not wheelchair accessible at this point. So we've got a core service that DART guarantees will make sure that everybody that needs a mobility device will get there. But we supplement it with Uber Pool. And so then what people do is they open it up on their app, the GoFast app, and they can choose Uber Pool, or they can choose GoLink. Or if they don't have their phone, well, Paratransit is not yet tied into it, but that's part of our goal. Paratransit's the ADA for individuals who are disabled that can't use a fixed route transit. The other, I think I lost my train of thought on that, but
You were talking about opening up the app.
yeah,
And,
so people can use the app, but if you don't have a smartphone, then you call the call center and you call when you need it. And so we've been advertising and pretty much delivering on providing service within 10 minutes. So if you had to wait for a bus every 30 minutes, you maybe say your average wait time would be 15 or 20 minutes. In this case, we're providing that vehicle if you use the app or if you call in within 10 minutes of the request time. And an Uber Pool is actually a little better from that. It's been generally in the 7 or 8 minutes in the South Oak Cliff area, or southern Dallas area. So I want to explain one other program which people may not know. And so in many cases there are people, particularly seniors, 65 or older, or people with disabilities that are not so severe that prevents them from using fixed route transit. They can use fixed route transit, but they may not be able to walk far enough to get to it. So we provide a service which is essentially allowing seniors to purchase in certain zip codes, and you can see that they can purchase up to $100 a month. They have to put in 25% of the cost, so they put in $25, and then they call Yellow Cab. In October, they'll call a DART number, and then we'll provide that provider. And so they can go where they want to go as long as the trip begins inside that zip code, and then comes back later from their trip back to that zip code. So you can't use it to travel anywhere within the region unless it begins or ends in that zip code. And so we found that a really helpful program, even for people who can use bus, but they may not be able to get to the bus. And so that $100 a month allows them to sort of get to where they can get other transportation services that are inexpensive, but they don't have to have that long walk. So this, right here you can see these are the zip codes that are now in effect. We're also negotiating with the City of Dallas for some other areas that the City of Dallas provides some medical transportation. but one of them is the 75217 zip code, which covers a substantial portion of the region around here. This kind of shows you that zip code. So the outer blue line, it's covered up, but on the east side there. But basically that whole area is, most of that whole area is that zip code. And so you can see there is fixed route service, including high frequency bus service. There is rail service, but along the east edge, you can see there isn't a lot of bus service. It's quite low density, and so this service will help. And then you can see those two green shades. The one that's to the left is I believe Kleberg, and so that's part of that zip code. So that provides mobility for people who are seniors or disabled.
That's 75253.
Okay. Now, I'm going to cover the rail projects real quickly, just a little bit about the Silver Line, the second alignment, and the red line, blue line platform extensions, and then I'll cover a little bit on the TOD at the end. So this is the train we have ordered. I think we've ordered 8 or 9 of them. It's electric, driven by a diesel generator. So it's what we call a DMU. It'll operate beginning in Plano up on Shiloh Road. It'll go past the George Bush Station right there at State Farm. It'll have a stop at the University of Texas at Dallas. It'll then continue, there'll be a stop at Knoll Trails, which is in Dallas, one in downtown Addison, one in downtown Carrollton, and then we'll have a stop at Cypress Waters, which is the city of Dallas. That is a development, a significant development. It'll now have rail service, and it'll then continue to the airport, Terminal B, where it will connect with TexRail, which is the Fort Worth Transportation Authority, or Trinity Metro is their name today. That would take you all the way to Fort Worth. And we will, in the future, interline those trains so that some trains will go to the airport and other trains will go directly to Fort Worth. So it'll get two-way traffic. Yes, sir?
Will these trains have to have catenary wire and all that?
They will not. It's it has a diesel generator. If you've been on the A train that operates from Trinity Mill Station on the Green Line all the way up to Denton, they're pretty quiet. In fact, they're quieter than the light rail vehicles, in my opinion. But it's a diesel engine that is small and it generates electricity that runs the wheels. This kind of shows you the dotted line there is the Cotton Belt alignment. You can see where it crosses the red line, it crosses the green line, it crosses the orange line, and then ties in to Trinity Metro over at the airport. And so it creates, for people in Plano and Richardson, they can get to the airport probably in 49 minutes compared to 90 minutes if they took the orange line from Parker Road downtown and around and out. To get to Addison from that area in Plano on bus, it could take you darn near 50 minutes on the traffic. You'll get there in 25 minutes. So it'll be a much quicker, faster way to travel east-west across the system.
Is there a stop at the Green Line that goes towards North Carrollton there so you can just get off in the Cotton Belt line and then go north to Carrollton and Denton?
Today, and when this is done, the answer is no, but DCTA would like to extend. Their train ends at the next station north of there, which is Trinity Mills. And so they would like to extend their train down to downtown Carrollton, which would then allow you to go from Denton, get into, it would be a rail hub, which would be really powerful. So that's not a DART project, it's a DCTA project, but that is in their vision.
It looks like there'd be a stop there on that Cotton Belt at the Green Line. So you can get off and then jump on the Green Line or side.
You can, but what you'd have to do is we stop. There's a station at the Green Line, so you can take the Silver Line over there and get onto the Green Line. So if you went north on the Green Line, one station today, that's where you catch the train to Denton.
If y'all want to hold your questions, I want to make sure Lacey's got enough time to do her presentation too. So And have him finish up here.
So this is our other big project. We're working with TxDOT on this one. We have not finalized the design, but in general, it'll be a tunnel down Commerce. And it will then come out and connect with the Green Line someplace in the Deep Ellum area. The exact details of that, you can see this is what we had hoped to do, but it really depends on the engineering issues getting resolved. And so we meet on a fairly regular basis with TxDOT and the community and the business community to make sure that that final plan is done. This allows us to run 2 lines on this one, that including the Green Line would come on this new alignment. But if there was a disruption on Pacific, which is where all the trains are today, we could reroute onto this section. So we would be able to be more redundant. Platform extensions. You have the ability to have 3-car trains and do have some 3-car trains on the Green Line today out to here, but we cannot run them on the red line or the blue line, and so we will be over the next 2 years lengthening the platforms from 300 feet to 400 feet, and that will allow us to run 3-car trains up to Plano or into down to Westmoreland, or on the blue line, which I often ride. You know, we have overloads at certain times of the day, so we'll be able to run those larger trains, and that'll help us with capacity. So that's the key thing. I just would mention real quickly, there have been proposals for TOD at Buckner Station. One was sort of a mixed-use development. That project kind of has died off, but DART would like very much to try to find private developers and work with the city to develop some kind of mixed-use developments. Could be residential, could be commercial. But doing that at Buckner Station would be great. We also have a lot of land at Longview, and we're working with the city of Dallas now on the trail and the connection to the Longview Station. And there's, I think, Edie told me about 20 acres that are developable. So that's another potential development area. And of course, Lake June is in between, is an area where we have extra land that could be a development project. So I end my presentation. I'm sorry it took so much time, but.
Yeah, if you have all your questions for Todd, and then we'll go ahead and let Lacey start hers. Lacey?